Our meeting is now open for the sharing of testimonies of healing through the study and practice of Christian Science. Tom from Iowa, go ahead, please.
Thank you. And thank you, Lenny, for those inspiring, wonderful readings. I'm really happy with the lesson sermons that this church publishes and mails to subscribers. It is also posted on the church website for free. More recently, I looked deeper into the lesson sermon for this week on the subject God. I asked God what some passages meant if they seemed obscure to me, and I felt God would tell me through the still small voice. I see and appreciate that these lessons are structured to guide us, and I'm very grateful to this church for putting them out there and what labor of love and dedication it must take to produce these lessons. So I'm grateful to be learning this and to look deeper into science than I had before. I had not been feeling well before I had done this, but after this communion with God, I felt so much better. These lessons meet all our needs and are perfect in God's timing. I don't doubt that. Thank you, Plainfield. Have a happy new year and good night.
Thank you. Bruce.
Well, thank you, Tom, for that wonderful testimony. And it is a new year. And it reminded me how, through God's grace, I was given a second chance on life. And for me, it was like a new beginning. And I'm so grateful for it. Whereas before finding this church, my life was characterized with a lot of fears and doubts and a lot of uncertainty. And I didn't really feel all that good about it. But because of Christian Science, here in the Plainfield Church, I was given a chance to start again and have some trust in a good God who has good for us. And sure enough, I did find it. I had a lot to learn, many lessons to learn, but this was my opportunity to learn them. And I am so grateful that I was brought to the Plainfield Church and given this chance. And today my life is much happier, healthier, and I have much more confidence in God, and I've had much more good brought to my life, and I'm very thankful for it. Recently, some of us watched a movie called The Christmas Candle, and the theme song in that movie was called Miracle Hymn. And the refrain in that song goes like this: miracles are all around, miracles yet to be found. Hid in every heart is an answered prayer. Like a candle's flame, hope will lead us there. So here again, this reminded me of what Christian Science has done for me here in Plainfield, because here I saw the light of Christian Science, the light of the truth, and so thankful that it has led me into so much good, as it can for literally anyone and everyone who will open their heart to it. So thank you.
Thank you. Jessica from Alabama, go ahead, please.
Yes, it's Jessica Glasgow, and it was a wonderful year last year. We are really blessed. We had a wonderful Christmas this past Christmas, and it had a wonderful New Year today, and the Mary Baker Eddy. I'll always love science and health, and I love to give people like my aunt science and health, and other people science and health. I'll always love, I would say, science and health and prose work. Those would be, if I only had two books, I would say that these would be the most important books that I would want, no matter whether I be rich or poor or whatever, what have you. And I'm glad that I got these in electronic form, and I got Science and Health in both electronic form and regular paper form in Braille. So I am really proud of that. And I hope y'all have a wonderful new year. And I love listening to y'all's testimony meetings. And I love him 34 too. So I look forward to y'all's testimonies every Wednesday. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jeremy.
I am very thankful to be a member of this church and for all I have learned of Christian Science here. I am so grateful for how I have learned here to stay calm and to trust God. In the time before coming to Plainfield, I was prone to getting overly stressed, and it would affect all parts of my life. Since coming here and working with a practitioner, I've learned to let go of feelings of personal responsibility and the need to plan things out meticulously. And now I know to wait on God each day and know that He will guide me. And He certainly was there for me this busy Christmas season, as He always is. And I'm grateful that I did not feel any stress or sleeplessness. Each day felt purposeful, and I had time for everything, including rest. It is a great blessing to have Christian Science and practitioner support and everything else that is made available here. I am very grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have a testimony from Kara in New Mexico.
Tonight I would like to express gratitude for a greater understanding of the Christ consciousness. At a recent roundtable, a beautiful phrase struck me. While sailing on a stormy sea, Jesus was able to sleep while the other passengers freaked out. His clear sense and calm trust in the allness of God good and consequent nothingness of anything not created by God was described at the roundtable as being an internal sea of glass. I loved that. I realized I could use it as a spiritual litmus test. If I'm not feeling that sea of glass inside, the unshakable understanding of the all-power and presence of God good that Jesus never for 1 second lost no matter what was thrown at him, then I'm being tricked into becoming more like those anxious passengers. I had a wonderful healing decades ago on a small plane about to fly through lightning storms over a mountain range at night. The pilot told us we were in for a very bumpy ride. I'd been going through a period of being fearful about flying, so I was already reading my Christian Science lesson, which happened to contain that story of Jesus in the storm. When I looked down after the announcement, this section leapt off the page. His disciples came to him and awoke him, saying, Lord, save us, we perish. And he saith unto them, Why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith? Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. I could hear the tone of Jesus' voice. Why on earth are ye fearful? Haven't I shown you over and over again what the Christ consciousness is? Are you ever going to get it? I remember thinking, geez, with all they experienced as Jesus' disciples, why didn't they get it? At which point I thought, with all you've experienced through the healing power of the science of Christ, why don't you get it? That made me laugh. Well, we took off, and I could see the lightning and the big storm clouds over the mountains that night, but there was not one single bump. Now, on every flight where an announcement is made about turbulence, I think, who says? Is this an announcement from God? If not, it's not true. Lately, however, I've realized that I need that conviction and clarity on the ground as well as in the air. It is so easy to get buffeted by the winds and dire predictions of the news and everyone around us. A dear friend of mine jokes that in her family, when the winter roads were even a little bit slick, relatives would arrive at her house saying, Oh my God, it was terrible out there. The roads were a sheet of glass. Funny, sure. But animal magnetism will use humor, fear, peer pressure, anything to trick us into believing we can fall out of the Christ consciousness. In Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy asks, are thoughts human or divine? That is the important question. To me, this means we can't just seek the calm of a sea of glass consciousness without rejecting the material sheet of glass mentality, as Jesus did in the boat and taught me to do on that plane. In other words, with every thought check in, is this sheet of glass or sea of glass? Am I falling for the next horrendous news story, weather report, or medical diagnosis? Or am I practicing the peace that passeth all understanding, that is the Christ consciousness? On this New Year's Day, when so many human resolutions are made, I wanted to share this simple spiritual practice. Choose sea of glass. Reject sheet of glass. Thank you, Plainfield, for all the ways you express the Christ consciousness in your work for the world.
Thank you. Dale in Virginia, go ahead, please.
Lesson from Apollo 13. My husband and I just watched a new documentary about the Apollo 13 space mission that took place in 1970. The rocket launched perfectly, but on its way to the moon, there was a terrible explosion, and all looked very dire for the 3 astronauts. Houston Control got busy and had to move into the moon landing module in order to survive. Their team of engineers worked together around the clock to plan a course to bring them back to Earth alive. Against all odds, and with several intense maneuvers, plus prayers from around the world, they were brought safely home. Seeing the images of so many people from so many countries praying for the same result warmed our hearts and was such a dramatic example of God's love. The impossible is possible when we align with love.
Thank you. Imogene from Australia, go ahead, please.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for this unique and extremely precious, independent Christian Science church. During a walk on a hot day here in Australia last week, I started thanking God, and I started to contemplate all the good that God has done for me. As a child, I used to lay in bed at night and ask God to bless and protect my childhood family, who I loved. And even on times when the beatings were so very bad, I just couldn't bring myself to hurt them. I would lay in bed at night, head under the covers, and sing the hymns I had learned in my Mormon upbringing. One of my favourites is also in the Christian Science hymnal. Quote, I need thee every hour, most gracious Lord. No tender voice like thine can peace afford. I need thee, oh, I need thee, every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Saviour, I come to thee. I've said before that I felt the watch prayers from this church during the 80s, and I say again tonight that God's love in those prayers got me through the savage years of my childhood, and I'm so very grateful to God for those years, because I did need Him every hour, and He did come to me and bless me. He healed my heart of sadness. He bound up the breaks and the wounds, and I would be all new by morning. This happened repeatedly over many years. He always blessed and healed me. Later in life, God brought me to Christian Science and my dear Australian practitioner, Graham Strang, who taught me every day for nearly 20 years. And when he returned home to God, I knew I had been shown the kingdom of God by this holy man to such an extent that I just had to do right by Christian Science and continue to learn and practice and get better at listening to what God wanted me to do. This divine love within was so intense that I could not rest until 2 a.m. one night when I found this church, Dearest Plainfield Independent, online. That is when I felt God telling me, I have found my home. And when I read the watch prayers, that is how I knew that I had been saved as a child by God. And the Christian Science watch prayer practice going out from this church I'm so very grateful for God's love and patience. He gave me so many chances to correct my mistakes. I certainly have no doubt that had I experienced a path of roses, I would not have so reached out to God in such desperation for His mercy and love. And I'm so grateful that He opened the door of His kingdom for me. Truly, our dear God of love is so incredibly kind and loving, and His sublime love is the treasure of my life. I am so grateful for Christian Science. I am so grateful to dearest Mary Baker Eddy, who wrote The Science of the Christ Healing and stood against all the hatred of the world, just as dear Christ Jesus had done before her. Thank you, God. Thank you, Christ Jesus. Thank you, Mary Baker Eddy. And thank you to our Plainfield practitioners and teachers for solemnly upholding the true Christian Science of Mary Baker Eddy. Thank you all so much, and so much love to you all.
Thank you. Izzy from England, go ahead, please.
I would like to express my deepest gratitude for quite a remarkable healing just this week. On Saturday, I started to feel like I was coming down with something with a very painful chest. The next day, I really struggled to do very much at all, including concentrate, as my head also was feeling completely out of it. It took all my strength to see to my animals in the morning, and then I got back home as soon as possible. I was working and praying as hard as I could, but I continued to feel worse. I think this was a claim of what Materia Medica would call a chest infection or possibly pneumonia. I was due to read the fruitage for the Plainfield church service that afternoon, Sunday. And we are 5 hours ahead of New Jersey here, so the service for me starts at 4 p.m. Although I feared at one point I might not make it, I did manage the reading, just about. But after that, I did my evening farm chores and then went straight to bed about 6 p.m, probably the earliest time I've ever gone to bed. When I woke the next morning, just Monday, I felt no better, and it took me a couple of hours to get myself in a position to feel able to go and do my chores. When I got home, I reached out to my Plainfield practitioner. It was still very early in the United States, but I pressed send and headed to bed. I couldn't do anything else. When I woke up a few hours later, I knew that I must be a little better because my head was no longer swimming. So I knew that this lovely kind lady had been praying for me. I checked my phone and there was a lovely message waiting for me with some beautiful truths. She also sent me a reminder about the wonderful Herbert Eustace article called Infection. I had read this article probably a couple of years ago, and I always remember some of its key points, namely that infection has no substance or existence. It also was very helpful to think back to the discussions in the round table just a few weeks ago about God being the only cause. And I knew that this infection or condition or whatever it was trying to make me believe was real did not come from God, so it had no cause. Within a couple of hours, I felt able to get up and sit downstairs. It was evening by this point, and I managed to take my dogs for their normal walk, which was pretty amazing. Yesterday morning, I woke up early, and all day, I could feel my health and strength flooding back to me. Just 24 hours earlier, I had been in an absolute state. I began to realize I was experiencing a really remarkable healing, and I am so grateful for this. As I read this testimony, I can feel myself continuing to recover and to heal. I'm so incredibly grateful for this healing, and I'm so grateful for the generous kindness and the swift response of the practitioner in helping me. Thank you so much. I so appreciate it. Thank you once again for the incredible resource that is the Plainfield Church website, with its abundance of literature and recordings. I'm so grateful to Mrs. Eddy for all that she did to bring us this wonderful science. And thank you to God who made all things good. And sending love and the happiest of New Year wishes to you all.
Thank you. Gary.
Well, this time of year, it's good to look back and see the changes that have taken place in my life. I know that change can be a difficult thing at times, but I am grateful that in Christian Science, I've learned that when a change is directed by God, and when it's approached with a positive expectation, it can be a tremendous opportunity for spiritual growth. I was remembering an experience I had, it was a few years ago, where I made what was then a very substantial change. My business partner and I were selling our business to a company in Switzerland and then going to work for them. And before this took place, I remember speaking with a Christian Science practitioner about it, who informed me that the only purpose for any change is for spiritual growth. Well, that helped me through a lot. When the change did take place, I had to meet a lot of people that I had never met before, and many of whom I would never meet in person because they lived in London or Zurich or Dublin or somewhere else in the world. And there was a lot for me to learn. New rules for doing business overseas instead of in the United States. Names of a lot of people, passwords for new computer systems, telephones. I had to attend a lot of meetings to learn a lot of new things. And I have to say that at times, all of the newness and sometimes the foreignness seemed overwhelming. And I, at times, even wondered if I'd made a mistake. But the fact that God provided this change was something that stuck with me and enabled me to get through it in a very positive way. And every time I felt overwhelmed, I would remember that, and I would find a quiet place to sit and pray to God to show me what was really important and what I really needed to do at times when I honestly felt overwhelmed in having too many things to do. So with that uppermost in my thought, the whole experience did in fact draw me closer to God, and for that I am very grateful. And I'm also grateful that the experience worked out very well for us and for the company that we went to work for. I am so grateful for the help I received from the practitioner in this church. And I'm very, very grateful for Mary Baker Eddy for providing us with her revelation, the science of Christianity, which answers every question we could ever have about life in total. I'm so grateful to be here with you all tonight.
Thank you. Luba from Ohio, go ahead, please.
Good evening. I'm so grateful to this church as it continues to provide for the entire world the true teaching of Christian Science. Recently, I have been experiencing skin issues that resulted in blemishes on the body. My practitioner has given me some basic truths, such as making sure there is no irritation in my thought. Also, she said, there is no imperfection in my perfection. And I'm so very grateful to her for this insight and truth. As I was thinking of the year ahead, I had read in an issue of the Individual Christian Scientist an article that Mrs. Eddy wrote to Judge Hannah. And she states in this article that in that hour of prayer, discard all your false sense of selfhood, all that is involved in the beliefs of birth, heredity, association, time, decay, death. By the grace and authority of God, close your thought firmly against the interference of mortal beliefs. Hold yourself open to the plan of God and closed to the plots of Satan. Rise into the spiritual forces of your own being and your destiny. Each day will begin and unfold under the authority of divine mind and will be well ordered, rightly balanced, filled with spiritual good. I'm very grateful for that particular statement. Also, as I'm going into 2025, I found something beautiful that Mrs. Betty wrote. And she stated so beautifully, think of this inheritance, heaven right here, where angels are as men, clothed more lightly, and men as angels who, burdened for an hour, spring into liberty, and the good they would do, that they do, and the evil they would not do that, excuse me, they would not do that they do not. Then she wrote her name, Mary Baker Eddy. It's a beautiful statement for the coming as I go into the 2025 year. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here this evening.
Thank you. Mishaela from Canada, go ahead, please.
Good evening. Happy New Year. I'm so happy to be here tonight and for all the testimony meetings and all the testimonies given. I learned so much from every testimony, and today I was reminded by the testimony about flying of an occurrence a few months ago when I had a flight and it was a rainy day. I love flying. It was a rainy day. Before I enjoyed the airport, the little airport, local airport, and then we got into the plane and the pilot said, we are in for a bumpy ride. And I don't know how I prayed, but I prayed that although I don't mind some bumps in a flight, I prayed for a soft flight and that everybody gets to the destination safe and that all is safe in God. And there was not one bump in that flight. And I forgot about it. But I was reminded by the other testimony today about it and wanted to give my gratitude for this experience and for learning how to pray here at the Plainfield Independent Church. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you. Shardy.
Good evening. I want to thank my practitioner and the teaching at this church for the blessings of the happiest Christmas season I have ever experienced. Working with my practitioner in prayer, I knew when to visit family members in another state, where and how to shop with loving gifts, when to be quiet and to be conscious of the true meaning of this holy season, ushering in the new old idea, the light of the world with gentle healing prayers for all mankind. For unto us a child is born, and his name shall be called Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. For Lenny from Georgia, go ahead, please.
Hey, this is Lenny. I just wanted to express my gratitude for Christian Science and for the beautiful lessons that we have each week. I've always loved the story of Jesus healing the withered hand. To me, it's just such a profound example of Christ's love, because not only is he standing up to the hardness of the hearts of the people around him that said he couldn't heal on a particular day, but also how he was standing up to material sense and how aggressive sometimes the claims of the physical senses seem to be, how real they try to present themselves to us. And it's so clear. It's like they taunt us, like Mrs. Eddy says in Unity of Good. That withered hand was taunting him with how real it seemed. And I realized that sometimes that's what its goal is to get us so absorbed in the issue that everything else that we need to do kind of falls by the wayside. And I was thinking, it brought to mind a healing that I had, I guess a number of years ago now. I've kind of lost track of time, but I had been struggling off and on pretty regularly with this belief of plantar fasciitis and my heel. And my heel would be extremely painful when I first got up, or when I first got up from like my desk after working for a while. And, nothing seemed to be healing it. It wasn't yielding in science. I even tried different physical things to stretch it out and this and that, and nothing seemed to give me permanent relief. And it was just this constant kind of barrage, sort of on my thought. And finally I came to a point where I decided I'm letting this go. I'm not going to let this stop me from doing the things I need to do, whether it's, walking around, or, I'm not going to let it discourage me from my study of Christian Science. I'm letting this go. And I guess I stopped listening to the taunts of that heel, telling me how real it felt and how it wasn't going anywhere. And I just pressed on. I did my work for church. I read my lesson. I did the physical activity I needed to do. And I stopped heeding that taunt. And I don't know when it left exactly, but looking back now, it's been several years since that problem occurred, and it hasn't come back. It left me quietly, and like I said, I don't even remember when, but it was a really beautiful thing, and I'm so grateful for it, because it's such a lesson to me that when we stop heeding the taunt of matter and we press on with the things of God, the things that we need to be doing, these aggressive problems do leave. And, it's been brought up in the church too, that, we can't let things stop us from doing our work for God. And this just reminded me of that. So I wanted to express my gratitude for that healing, and to thank everyone for all your testimonies tonight, and to wish everyone a very happy new year, and my love to everyone.
Thank you. Florence, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'm so grateful. Thank you, Lenny, for the empowering readings tonight as we go forward. I have learned that we can only reflect this power of God when we remain humble and fit to be used by God, as David did. I'm very grateful for this learning, and I know that our world has been given an invaluable gift through Christian Science, and I'll forever be grateful for it. I have a testimony from Orkney, Scotland. He says that for the Wednesday reading on November 13, 2024, with its theme, The Unifying Power of Universal Love, I am day by day grateful. It has shed focused light on so many levels and inspires me in dealing with a plethora of issues, too many to address them all tonight. First instance, on that very day, 13th of November, I had just returned to Orkney, Scotland, after 3 days international flight. More than 6 months of caring in Aotearoa, New Zealand, had been a marvelous learning experience. But I needed inner confirmation that all will be well. So I set my alarm to 1 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. and I awoke to the reading of the theme, The Unifying Power of Universal Love. After listening to the reading, I felt assured that all is well. Indeed, an all-embracing manifestation that prayers are answered before we ask. Universal love, with its unifying power, lifts any sentiment of separation. As the Plainfield CS magazine is aptly stating, love is the liberator. So I wish for everyone that their days are resonating with this message. The unifying power of universal love is working around the globe. With much love, joyously grateful, Karen from Scotland. I'm so grateful to be here tonight to hear the marvelous readings and the marvelous testimonies. My heart just is filled with gratitude for Mary Baker Eddy's Christian Science and how it is practiced in this church. Grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you. Mary.
Good evening, everyone. Have some notes on Christmas cards to read tonight. The first, Colorado. Thank you all who make the round table and the Bible lessons so timely and instructive. My gratitude for all that this independent church provides for the world. And then from Ghana, someone who I guess had received some literature. Thank you very much to everyone who made these publications possible and who mailed it. I love it. It is a valuable addition to my library. Mercy forever. And then England, to everyone at the Plainfield Christian Science Church, with much love to you all and gratitude for everything you do all year. And then a few testimonies tonight. The first, New Hampshire. I am grateful to be woken up recently to the seeming evils in our world. I saw in the news that children in the United States are struggling in math. They said this is also due to many children being absent from school. My daughter seems to be among this group, and I know that I need to see this correctly for her and for all God's children. This is animal magnetism at work, and we need to see it for what it really is, a lie. God's children express that one mind, all intelligence, all understanding, and encompass all right activity. And that right activity involves going to school. I'm so grateful to rely on my science for all problems at hand and to always expect the right results to unfold. I've already seen in action by the little things that have already unfolded. My daughter expressed recently to me that she cannot miss any more school. She has joined the ski team, and that relies on her grades. I also spoke with her guidance counselor, who is finding her a high school math tutor during school. I know these things will help her along, and I'm so grateful to see this growth in her and for the constant proof of God's guidance and care for all of his children. Thank you. And then from Virginia, many thanks for all the powerful truths to work with, which were given in a recent Sunday roundtable discussion. The wonderful lesson sermons, the unity watches, the daily emails, and all the articles on the website carousel. Besides learning What Christmas Means to Me by Mary Baker Eddy, another essential and inspiring item recommended to work with in this holy season is The Power of a Right Idea, found in the addresses by Martha Wilcox. If you don't own a copy, we are fortunate to have the entire book available on the website. So inspiring is all this study, it really sets you apart from all the harsh noises of the day and brings you your thought closer and closer to your oneness with our Father, Mother, God. Another blessing can be found under Noteworthy News on the website. After feeling your closeness and connection to God, click on the blessing, number 6, 24 to 26, at this website. Listen and watch, full screen if on the computer, to voices all over the world singing and praising the Lord with hope, faith, and happiness. Truly, these happy faces and joyful voices will uplift your spirit and lead you to feel the connection that we all have in our oneness with our Father, Mother, God. And this one, another one from Colorado. I began exploring readings by Mary Baker Eddy on the Plainfield website over a year ago and experienced remarkable peace and well-being. As time went on, however, I learned that it is up to me to sustain that peace. Today I can say that I am praying for myself and that, although I fail sometimes, I battle until I reach a better state. The thoughts I am working with have brought me the thought that I am an idea of God made manifest. Plainfield made my progress possible. I wasn't able to progress in situations where how to interpret Mrs. Eddy's work is determined by committee and presented by the authoritative view. I am grateful for the unassuming peace I have in which I think thoughts that are comfortable for me. I have actually been playing the piano again, and I have ammunition ready when thoughts or feelings occur to me that are a torment. I've integrated my own experience with Mrs. Eddy's words as I am able to do that, and how grateful I am to be allowed to do it independently. And the last is another testimony. I'm not sure what state she's from. Many years ago, a problem with one eye appeared. I went to an optometrist who explained that I needed glasses. I got the glasses, but they didn't help. They ordered another pair, still not right. Health insurance would not cover anymore. The same thing happened with another optometrist. I was beyond frustration as working on a computer was very strained. A friend suggested trying reading glasses, which I did. Level 375 appeared to work. For years I used them. At one point, I began attending a Christian Science church. I memorized Mary Baker Eddy's statement of being because it sounded right to me. In a previous testimony, I shared how using that statement healed a twisted ankle and back pain that I had been seeing a chiropractor for once a month or more. I began to wonder if my eyes could be healed too. A woman in a Christian Science reading room gave me a long list of qualities on an 8.5 by 11 paper. I put it in on the wall in the bathroom so that every time I was in there, I would read them over. I started with 18 font. I wished to be healed totally of the need for glasses, and I read many Christian Science testimonies and articles and prayed along those lines, acknowledging that as God's child, I was purely spiritual. I kept at it, although I had pretty much accepted it may not work. A few years later, I took some classes in another town. Someone accidentally stepped on my glasses that I had dropped. I went to the store at lunchtime, and by that time I had forgotten what level I needed, and I chose a pair by trying them on to read print labels. When I returned home and compared them to my spare glasses, I had gone from level 375 to 350, and this perked me up. I began denying that I needed glasses because as a spiritual being I shouldn't need them. Months later, I sat on those glasses and broke them. I wondered if that was a sign that I needed another level. Yes, I was now down to 325. But it annoyed me that my eye wasn't being healed quickly like my ankle and my back had been. I didn't know much about practitioners at that time. But every morning when I did the lesson and reading, I thought about God making everything, and therefore sight was spiritual, not material. Why was I still needing glasses then, a material thing? The idea came to me to change my thinking statement to, I see clearly with or without glasses, and every time I put them on, I would remind myself of this. Months later, I began doing the lesson and was almost done before I realized I didn't have my glasses on. I was thrilled, but then noticed the letters were fuzzy. Whoops. I know now I should have challenged that idea with truth immediately. I bought more glasses and level 2 worked, but now I was impatient. Something the lady at the reading room had told me was not to allow impatience because we are to learn precept upon precept. Okay then. A few weeks later, I just put the glasses down, deciding I will read with fuzziness if that's the best I could do. And as most of you already know, the fuzziness dissolved. I had a long trek how to practice confronting mortal mind with truth, and now I am glasses free. I'm also in retirement now, but I don't care if it took that long. I learned so much. My eye is expressing its wholeness for over a year now, and I'm so grateful for Mary Baker Eddy, Christian Science, and for the woman at the reading room, where I first began learning about the truth of spiritual being. Thank you, Plainfield Christian Science, for all your work, all your resources, and your YouTubes, especially the various readings of Mary Baker Eddy's workers. Blessings for a happy holiday and a new year for all. So that was a lot to read tonight, but I'd been collecting them for a while. So anyway, so grateful for those beautiful readings, the wonderful testimonies. I mean, each week we go over our allotted 9:15 time because we have an abundance of gratitude to our dear Heavenly Father, Mother God. So I'm grateful to be with you here tonight, and everyone have a good night, and yes, a very blessed and holy New Year.
Thank you.